Welcome to another episode of Dinner Starts Here. I think you guys are my first at dawn farm that I've done. Courtney and Charles at Wilmot Orchards. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
So tell me about Wilmot Orchards. What do you guys grow?
So here at Wilmot Orchards, we grow high bush, pick your own blueberries, as well as high density commercial apples, which we're in right now.
We are in right now, and I mean, when you look, and I'm going to kind of go in behind you, when you look, like, talk about a good apple.
We have 9 different varieties, but 80% of the orchard is in 3 different varieties, and they are Honeycrisp, a lot of people's favorite, and Gala, and then the all Canadian apple called Ambrosia.
Oh, the
and Ambrosia was found in nature in Canada. So it's truly a Canadian apple, and it is a very hard and sweet apple.
Isn't that cool? Now, I saw when we were up at the shop, you know, everybody's kind of coming into work and getting ready for the day. You know, what are some of the jobs that they're working at and that you guys have worked at kind of since springtime?
Well, there are 75 different diseases and insects that attack an apple.
75?
75.
So something is always trying to eat an apple more than me.
Yes. So we obviously trying to control all of that is very scientific, and a lot of knowledge into it, to the crop protection materials that we use on them. So there is a lot to do with that. That starts the first thing in the spring when that little bud breaks. So right through till you harvest the apple, basically. Managing the staff for pruning an apple tree. There's 2 different types of pruning. There's the winter pruning, which every tree is pruned by hand.
Oh.
And then
in January.
In January.
In the snow.
And how many trees are here? Like, just to give us an idea.
I'm going to give you a rough estimate. I think it's close to 100,000 apple trees.
100,000 apple trees by hand in January. Your hand.
January,
Why
February.
would you do that?
I do not know. but it's very healthy, by the way. You don't catch a cold when you're out here pruning.
Well, I don't
you will when you get inside, but not when you're out.
Like, why is pruning? Because that's one thing I've heard from you know, other apple farmers, is pruning is a big job. Why is pruning such a big job?
Pruning's a job. You're managing the crop load of the tree. If you let an apple tree grow every apple that is pollinated, then you will have probably little wee apples, and next year you won't have any bloom because all the energy will have gone into producing the apples, and you just won't have a bloom. So you'll have a very biennial crop. So basically, the thing is, you only need 10% of the blooms to have an apple to have a full apple crop.
Really?
So that's Mother Nature's way of protecting, giving you a crop almost every year, because you're less likely to lose all the blooms or not get them all pollinated by the bees.
Oh, really? So that's obviously one of the biggest jobs you've got then. And then when harvest time comes around, I mean, is it all by hand too?
It's all by hand.
So we found a newer part of the orchard. You said these, planted in 2014, you got this planted. So that's 3 years that you're just kind of starting to get a crop out of these apples?
That is correct. Yeah.
That's a long process from the time that you actually plant. So maybe take me back to planting. How do you plant an orchard of apple trees nowadays?
Because the technology has changed, and we've gone from planting 100 trees back 20 years ago to 500 10 or 15 years ago. Now we're up to over 1,000 trees an acre.
Per acre, there's 1,000 trees.
1,000 trees. We did that to capture the maximum amount of sunlight, because that's your energy to grow the crop. So at the end of the day, these trees, because they're so close together, they have to be planted with a tractor that's been steered by the GPS.
Oh, really?
So that the steering wheel is not touched while the tractor's going down the row. So these trees are 12 feet apart across the row here, and they're less than an inch. The accuracy is an inch.
No way. So these rows, I mean, it looks pretty straight, but you know they are exactly straight because basically been done by GPS.
GPS.
Something.
A person cannot do that.
Isn't that
They
something?
can't
So
drive
then,
that.
so then, 3 years ago, you decided that this was the right crop of apples to grow, and you're just really starting to see apples. How long before the orchard, before these trees aren't really, you got to start again, basically?
Well, that is basically on the marketplace, because the marketplace wants something new. That's why they build cars with new gadgets. So down the road, I have to figure out what the marketplace wants for at least 15 to 20 years, because the profitability to get the expense back, you've got to grow an apple for at least 20, 25 years to get a profit out of it and pay back all the expenses of putting this type of orchard in. This orchard in Ontario costs more to plant than actually to buy the land to put it on.
Really?
Which is really out there. Yeah. So at the end of the day, you would like a crop for 25 years. That's what we aim for. I've been in this business for 43 years, and trees don't last much more than 20 to 25 years on this property.
That's about the max, yep.
Because I'm looking at that marketplace and that new apple that the consumer wants, that somebody has found in nature, as I mentioned about the ambrosia, or a breeder in Minnesota, the University of Minnesota, which bred the Honeycrisp apple.
That's what we're in now.
That is what we're in now.
Well, because I got to tell you, that's one of my new favorites anyway, in terms of an eaten apple. What made you decide Honeycrisp? Because you had to decide before I decided I liked it.
Honeycrisp, I do a lot of research, because when you're putting this type of an investment, you don't want to plant an apple that in 5 or 6 years' time, it's out of the marketplace, because you're done. So you really have to do your homework. And actually, I go downtown Toronto every once in a while. And back in the early days, back 17 years ago, I met a person down there on the sidewalk. I'm a talker. And they said, "Oh, what do you do?" And I says, "I grow apples." And he says, "Oh, you grow Honeycrisp?" And I knew instantly that this apple has never been known. And I said, "Ooh, well, I better look into that." And the research had to take a bit of a risk. All businesses take risks. And I guessed this one right.
This one right. So 17 years ago, you
Yep.
kind of decided that was the one, and now,
Yep.
it must be one of the most popular ones.
It is.
It is.
It is. And there's more trees of Honeycrisp in this orchard than there is of any other variety.
Any other apple.
But, yeah.
So then, you talk about risks, because I've learned on all these tours that there are a pile of risks involved. What are some of the other risks that you've got to deal with, and how do you deal with them?
Well, the risk is it's Mother Nature that gives us our risk, whether it's not enough water, so we would irrigate if we've got water accessibility on the property, like a pond or a stream or a good well, my goodness. And and then you have too much water, which happened this year, so we put tile drainage in to take that excess off. If not, there wouldn't be any oxygen to the roots, and oxygen is necessary for that tree to live. It has to breathe like you and I have to breathe.
Really?
So that's the thing. We have frost fans, which protect the blossom in the springtime from frost damage. If it gets down to -2 or 3, you can lose your whole crop.
Well, and that happened a few years ago, where it got too cold and the blossoms disappeared, and then you're in the springtime, and it means no apples for that year.
Absolutely. 80% of the crop in Ontario was lost that year. And then you have a hail cannon. We have a hail cannon, and it actually helps to keep the hail from ruining your apple crop. We can lose an apple crop in 2 minutes.
In 2 minutes of hail. So how does a hail cannon work?
It actually makes a sound wave, which pumps up. Sound waves can go up to 30 to 40,000 feet into the atmosphere, and it will it carries positive ions. Positive ions, we're breathing positive and negative ions as we talk. Sound wave will pick up those positives, put extras up in where the hail is supposed to be formed, and a hailstone is made up of a positive ion, a negative ion, a piece of dust in the right atmospheric conditions. So if you have excess positive ions up in that atmosphere above your orchard, you won't get hail.
You won't get hail. So it shoots those sounds up and does that. Isn't that
It does
something?
that.
There's a lot of little details to just kind of trying to make sure Mother Nature doesn't always win in her fight with you.
That is correct.
Isn't that
Correct.
something? Well, thanks for the tours, guys.
Okay.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much.